I do want to flip it over. You're going to be at the Cotton Bowl down there in Dallas. You got Texas, going to be a home crowd about 200 miles away from Austin. Ohio State's playing there. We know about the Buckeyes. We have talked about them ad nauseum on this show. Offensively, they've been phenomenal. It's Jeremiah Smith, and then it's Emeka Egbuka, and then it's Travion Henderson. Will Howard's been spinning the ball. You're throwing Quinshon Judkins to throw some haymakers in there at the end. It's been complete. The offensive line has looked good. On defense, starts with the guys up front. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau have been great. Cody Simon at the second level has been a man possessed. And then really the whole secondary, Denzel Burke, you're not hearing his name for anything negative. Same thing with Davison Igbinosun. In the two safeties, Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs have been really good. So we have that all on the table. Texas, however, very talented roster. This is one of the best rosters in the country, two of the most expensive, no doubt. But you got Quinn Ewers there on offense. You've got Golden at wide receiver. You got Wisner, who's come on at running back. It's a talented tight end group. Offensive line banged up right now, but those dudes are big. They move well when they're healthy. And then flip it over to defense. Strong in the trenches. Very fast, athletic, and physical at the second level. And that's a secondary that can cover, and they'll come up and hit you too. So what do you make of this one when you start to break down two of maybe on paper the most talented teams that we've seen in a while?
Okay, so my blanket statement is if Ohio State plays the way we saw them play against Tennessee and against Oregon, it doesn't matter what Texas does. And I don't mean to be disrespectful because Texas is a good team, but that what we've seen these past 2 weeks is it's nightmare fuel for Texas. Let's start with Texas having the ball, and you work your way down, okay? The matchup of Sark against Jim Knowles, going to be a really fun matchup. Sark, one of the great offensive minds in college football. Jim Knowles has this defense. This is why they went out and hired Jim Knowles. This is why you go out and get Caleb Downs. This is what you've wanted to see from JTT and Jack Sawyer and Tyleik Williams. Here's the key, okay? Texas won the game against Clemson on the ground. They ran the heck out of the ball. Arizona State, they kind of shut them down, honestly. So
I think it was like 59 yards rushing against Arizona State.
And let me just tell you, that Buckeye front is going to be turned up a bunch of knots from Arizona State. Here's the key. So Texas might have the best tackle duo in college football, certainly one of them. Cameron Williams, their right tackle, missed the Arizona State game. He was practicing, limited, missed the game. That's something to monitor because they run a lot of outside zone. Yep. And for all the heck that JTT and Jack Sawyer get for not getting after the quarterback, those guys are stone walls in the run game, and they set firm edges. They are stone. Here's the other thing, Joshua. So Ohio State playing in the Big Ten, in order to you run a lot of single high. You can play cover one or single high safety defense and bring that extra safety in the box because your opponents are going to run the ball to beat you. Well, against Tennessee and against Oregon, Ohio State – a statistical jump in too high coverage, too high shell, right? Yep. You mentioned not seeing we haven't heard about Burke and Igbinosun because you have safety help over top. They've helped those guys. The other key is Jordan Hancock, who typically plays nickel, but has played safety at times this season. They've put him and Ransom at safety and let Caleb Downs kind of roam a little bit.
Yes.
Jim Knowles loves to play safeties. It's the key going all the way back to Oklahoma State. Safeties are the key. So I think that has been the biggest difference here is they started to implement more split safety defense and allowed Caleb Downs to roam around a little bit. And then you've seen this defensive front emerge and start to play lights out. That's what I'm watching out for here. Because if Texas can't run the ball, which it's going to be hard to do, I don't trust Quinn Ewers to beat.
I don't either.
I do not trust him. And then PFF has grades, Joshua, and I'm rambling here. His grades when facing split safety defense, they're not pretty. I'm just saying, and that's true for most quarterbacks. It's harder to throw in a split safety defense. His grades are not pretty against split safety.
You want to know why, though? But you know why. It's because when they're playing split safeties, you have to be able to drive the ball into windows, right? Like if you got a cat who's running a corner route, right? You got the underneath coverage who's sinking, right? And you've got the safety over top. There's a window that you have to make it into. Right? Yeah. He does not drive the football in the windows. If you're seeing split safety coverage, you have an opportunity to hurt a team in the seams, right? Like you can find that window there between the safeties, just over the linebacker, if he's too slow to carry. But if you can't drive the football, you're not going to hit it. And he struggles driving the football. He throws a pretty ball, guys. I'm not saying he can't throw the ball. Throws a pretty ball. When it comes to touch passes, he's one of the best in college football. He's actually pretty good when it comes to location. His issue is pace. Pace is the problem for him. And that's why he struggles against two high safeties. I think that's going to be one in this game. And Caleb Downs is going to have an opportunity to try to take the football away. He got his hands on the ball a ton against Oregon. I look at Ohio State offensively, and I just ask the question, is this the game against this front seven where the offensive line starts to look like the unit that we've been concerned with? Because the last two games, we have not said a word about this offensive line and some of the issues that have been presented.
I was going to say, Donovan Jackson, when you talk about guys, and this is another storyline, is you have emotional leaders that have stepped up. Jack Sawyer has been an emotional leader that stepped up. Obviously, Caleb Downs, the way he hits you. But Donovan Jackson, moving out to tackle, that dude, Tennessee's got a first-round edge rusher, okay? Like Oregon's got a great defensive line. Donovan Jackson
kid from Tennessee, I think, is good, but I think he's a social media edge rusher. I think the media hyped him, but neither here nor there. He's very talented.
But is he Chop Robinson, right? Is he not a Chop Robinson?
Yeah, no, I'm saying he's very talented, but I do want to say.
Sure. But still, hey, you're a guard playing out in space, and that has.
Well, dude, I mean, the two guys from Oregon, the Twin Towers there, like if you could block those guys, you can block anybody. Those are two aliens.
Yes. So that's the piece of this. But I think they've been helped by their play calling. Okay. And you and I, we went back and watched it was boneheaded, the game plan against Michigan, but they've started to run more gap scheme. And I think that helps them. Gap scheme, just for our viewers, is it's when in doubt, gap scheme cleans up the picture, because if you're on if you're play side, okay, your rules are simple. You guys can even understand this. You step inside, okay? And if there's color in your gap, you hit it. And then you have polars that come around and they look for color. And then the running backs follow them. Rather than in zone scheme, you're trying to identify and guess and do it. Oh, with Ohio State's athletes, you just run gap scheme and say, block your gap, pull and go hit somebody, and the backs will make you right. So I think Chip and Ryan have done a good job of helping those guys out. And then you get into play action off of that. They're running gap scheme, counter scheme, and then sending Jeremiah Smith or Ibuka or whoever on like a slide route. And it's just, it's too much for defenses to stop.
Dude, I mean, when they had Jeremiah we called it the sub boot, but he was sliced behind the line. They had pulled the guard opposite. So you have all of the pursuit going away from where Jeremiah is going behind the line of scrimmage. And that created nothing but space where, to credit those wide receivers out there, they're on body blocking. I mean, that's a win every time. And that's the type of play calling you're talking about. When I think about gap scheme runs, I always thought about the blocking angles for the offensive linemen. I think it gives them advantageous angles to engage into blocks, right?
Yes.
You're able to – you can knock a guy on his hip instead of trying to square somebody up at times, right? Like it makes more sense. You get some dudes pulling around, coming downhill now on a smaller man. It's been really good to see. Ultimately for me, I think the train keeps rolling for Ohio State. They're confident right now, very talented. They're dialed in players and coaches. And frankly, if Sark can't get Texas in a perfect plays offensively, I don't think their offense is all that effective. Quarterback is good, but he struggles when it's not defined for him. I don't think the wide receivers do a great job of winning, even though I think that they're very talented, can go up and high point the ball and make 50-50 catches, but they're covered a lot of times, right? Like these are the things that I'm looking at and I say Ohio State can give them problems.
Yeah, no, listen, and I'm completely with you. And frankly, I don't think there is a perfect play because Ohio State, the way they've been playing defensively, it's conservative play calls with athletes that are aggressive. So they're playing safe cover 2 shell, and yet they're aggressive in the run game. So I have Ohio State winning the national. You want to know my thoughts on this game is I have Ohio State winning the national championship, and I don't even care who wins Penn State, Notre Dame. So that's my opinion on Texas too.
I got to see the way these games play out before I say all of that. But
I'm so confident in that team right now.
No, they're rolling. They look really good.
Yeah.
Jake, I thought this was really good. I appreciate you spending some time here on the preview.
Efficient.
It was quick. I know. How about it? But
how about Will Howard? Last thing before we go, Will Howard.
Yeah.
I think he has been phenomenal. And you listen to the way his teammates talk about him, Joshua. The Buckeyes, your alma mater, found a leader in Will Howard this year.
So I don't want to bring up old things, but I worked with some people at a different place, and they made the comment when Will Howard, after the Indiana game, was doing the cigarette thing, Signetti. They were like, "Oh, I don't like that," and he hasn't been there, and I don't know why he's the guy who's doing all that, yada yada yada. And I'm like, y'all don't get it, because other quarterbacks in the past would have never done it. And I think Ohio State needed to get back to, and not forever, but at least for a time, back to the junkyard dog of quarterbacks, who is not a first-round pick, but he is a dude that everybody wants to play hard for. I think of JT Barrett. I said this comp earlier in the year. JT Barrett would go out there and he would have some nasty games. But one thing you knew about him, he was gonna fight his butt off. He's gonna be a great teammate. And if he made a mistake, he was gonna work his tail off to get it right. And I see a lot of that in Will Howard from his approach. Michigan game, nasty. Been phenomenal since. Right? Like, and guys believe in him. So what do you say?
I got Ohio State winning 31-17.
I think it's going to be in that neighborhood. I think Ohio State could put up as many as 38 points in this game.
Yeah,
I really do. Yeah. But I think conservatively, I would go with a 31 to. I'll go with a 31-17 as well. I think 17-21 sounds about right with this Ohio State defense. But